So, first things first, what do I actually mean by surpassing yourself or controlling your mind? Well, step number one, ask yourself the question, are you fully 100% satisfied of where you are in life, or do you currently feel that you could potentially be in a better place? Whether that be in your profession, relationships, a particular skill set, whatever the case may be. I would argue that there's a probability that you know within yourself that you could do more. So we've established this principle, but now we need to face the reality of how do I actually do this? And the truth already is that some people do actually have ridiculous amounts of time on their hands, but most people probably work quite tiring jobs, maybe have a family, and well, firstly, I would argue you probably do actually have more time than you'd like to think, and there's loads of bad habits we could all be cutting out of our lives. But that's completely besides the point of this particular video. What I'm more interested in exploring is the fact that I believe that our mind is the most powerful tool we have at our disposal, and that we can actually influence it in order to become a much more productive and driven individual on a day-to-day basis. So let me give you an example. Have you ever been at work doing the same routine tasks as usual, not really feeling motivated to do anything particularly well or particularly fast or particularly thoroughly, but then maybe you're listening to a podcast or someone sends you a message or you just see something happens, and suddenly you realize you need to do this task as well as you possibly can, and you sort of get into that mindset where you're going to complete it whatever happens, that you get in that zone of productivity, you will work as hard and as long as it takes to complete the task. So the interesting thing here is we notice that for the same task, and I'm sure we have all been through this, we've had days where we do it very well and we have days where we don't, right? So essentially we have two mindsets on a very large scale, of course, but two mindsets which will completely influence the way you will approach a problem or a task. And there's one mindset which will be beneficial to you, and one which is quite clearly hindering you. And the problem with this, and I'm sure I'll make other details delving probably even further into the topic, is that at the moment, when with the example I just gave, I think you'd be requiring an external impetus to sort of fuel this state of motivation or inspiration, which leads to really high degree of productivity. And so this state of motivation can be quite fleeting. So you may feel inspired for a few hours or a day, and then it will go away. So, but the point here is just to sort of prove how the mind in itself is impacting the way we can do the same thing. It can change it almost to a complete 180. I can give you a very personal example of this as well. So last year I ran the Paris Marathon. I had never ran a marathon before. And I had done some training in my own way. I do lots of sports, so I knew I could do it, but I had never ran more than 30k in a row. And so when I reached that 30k landmark, and I still had 10k to do. Apologies for the use of kilometers, but we're in France over here. Well, for that last quarter, basically, my mindset was I'm going to keep running whatever it takes. And the truth was that these last 10 kilometers were horrible. Like, lots of people were walking around me. It was really difficult. I had never done this much physical effort in one go. I really feel like, so every part of my body basically wanted me to stop running and start walking, and I would have done it. But the thing is, I had cultivated the mindset that I knew that I was going to complete this whatever it took. And imagine if you could just have this mindset of completing whatever task you want to do, whatever it takes, on a daily basis. Wouldn't that be quite something? So the key question that we really should be asking ourselves is not how do I do such and such practical thing? Because we all know the answer to it is just work harder, spend more time at it. But that's what's actually complicated to do because we don't have the right mindset for this. And so the question should really be formulated differently. It should be, how do I tap into this mindset which enables me to perform in the way I want to perform? And so this is really the key point I want to drive down to you guys. The focus should be on the mind and figuring out the different things which trigger a state of inspiration for you. And I think a lot of people actually have this a bit backwards in the whole self-help, self-develop space, etc. Like people speak about the importance of having a goal and that this will sort of fuel your motivation. But so I do believe being goal-driven is important. But let me hypothesize this. I genuinely believe that a person who does not know exactly where they are going, but adopts the mindset that they will perform to the best of their ability in any given task, will end up places and be given opportunities that will lead them to a better place in life than someone who just has a goal but does not ever consciously think about training his mind and therefore never really does what it takes to achieve that goal. It's not just the goal which is important. So how do we actually reach a stage where we get that mindset? So, well, firstly, we've already achieved the first step, which is realizing the importance of the mind. And now the second step is understanding your own mind and knowing the different things which trigger that state. Now, I would hypothesize that we're all quite similar beings, and the things which work for me might to some extent work for you. However, there will be personal differences for sure.